This is an MJA Inc. Investigations warning. This MJA podcast is rated E for explicit. Some details of a case and language used on this podcast might be upsetting to some of our listeners. Listeners' discretion is advised. And for those who are still with us, kick back and enjoy the show. When there is an ending, there was a beginning. Every victim has a picture to paint. Every true crime has its time and place. Please join our MJ podcast, the series Deep into the Woods, Missing Persons, Unsolved Crimes, and the Does. Welcome to our MJ podcast, this series, Deep into the Woods, Episode 15, Part 5, 8 Indiana Missing Person Cases. The Doe Network has 66 males listed as missing from the state of Indiana. The Doe Network has 55 females listed as missing from the state of Indiana. Good evening, everyone. My name is Mark, and I will be your host for tonight's show. Joining me later will be our co-host, Olivia. We will profile missing person cases from the state of Indiana. Just a short note, Indiana is my home state, and it is where MJA was founded on June 1st, 2001. We are coming to you from Morrisonville, New York, located in the Adirondack Mountains. Welcome to Indiana. 8 Indiana missing person cases. Case 1. On September 12, 1979, 39-year-old Robert Allen Meredith, a white male, went missing from Evansville, Indiana. Case 2. On October 16, 1974, 19-year-old Deborah Ann Wilhite, a white female, went missing from Evansville, Indiana. Case 3. On March 5, 1992, 28-year-old Mark Edward Tomick, a white male, went missing from Indianapolis, Indiana. Case 4. On March 10, 1977, 22-year-old Margaret Ann Hayes, a white female, went missing from Bloomington, Indiana. Case 5. On November 21, 1995, 32-year-old Patrick E. King, a white male, went missing from Oakland City, Indiana. Case 6. On May 29, 1983, 24-year-old Kimberly Marie Blackburn, a white female, went missing from Indianapolis, Indiana. Case 7. On May 21, 1999, 48-year-old John Lynn Taylor, a black male, went missing from Gary, Indiana. Case 8. On July 22, 2001, 28-year-old Marilyn Renee Nicole McCowan, a black female, went missing from Richmond, Indiana. Let's take a pause for the cause, and when we return, Olivia will be on the line. Be back in a moment. Welcome to our MJ podcast, this series, Deep into the Woods, Episode 15, Part 5, 8 Indiana Missing Person Cases. We have Olivia on the line. How are you doing tonight?
Doing well.
Oh, that's good. And are you ready to dig into these unsolved mysteries?
Yes, I am.
Okay. Welcome to Indiana. 8 Indiana missing person cases. Case 1. Welcome to Evansville, Indiana. On September 12, 1979, 39-year-old Robert Allen Meredith, a white male, went missing from Evansville, Indiana. The 39-year-old Meredith was last seen in Evansville, Indiana sometime during 1979. Meredith's wife stated that they got into an argument and she asked him to leave, and he did. The 39-year-old Meredith has never been seen again. Meredith's wife stated she received a collect phone calls and letters from her husband in Tampa, Florida, after he had left. No one else heard from him, and there is no hard evidence of his existence since he disappeared in 1979. Meredith's wife later divorced him, remarried, and moved on with her life. Meredith's sister called the police to inquire about his case in 1992. It was then that she learned Meredith's wife had never reported her brother as missing. Meredith had at least 8 children by 4 wives. Many of the children did not know about one another's existence until the start of the investigation into his disappearance. One of Meredith's ex-wives had him declared legally dead after his disappearance. She stated she thought he would have come to visit her and her daughters if he could have. Since he hadn't, she believed he was deceased. None of Meredith's loved ones believed he would have simply walked away from his life. Police began an investigation into Meredith's disappearance in 2007, 28 years after he was last seen. Meredith's case remains unsolved. If you have any info concerning this case, please call the Evansville Police Department at 812-436-4027.
Case 2. Welcome to Evansville, Indiana. On October 16th, 1974, 19-year-old Deborah Ann Wilhite, a white female, went missing in Evansville, Indiana. Deborah resided in Gibson County, Indiana, with her husband and 2 daughters in 1974. The 19-year-old Wilhite was employed as a server at the Windmill, a truck stop and restaurant near Indiana Highways 41 and 57. Wilhite had been working there for only a week. Wilhite's co-worker said that she worked around her normal shift during the evening hours on October 16, 1974. A man entered the restaurant shortly before the end of Deborah's shift. The unidentified man said he had hitched a ride on a cattle truck to Evansville from Indianapolis to collect some money owed to him, and that he was staying in a local motel. It was raining at the time, and his clothes were wet. The unidentified man asked 19-year-old Deborah Wilhite to give him a ride to his motel. The unidentified man is described as middle-aged and medium height with dark, medium-length hair. One witness was under the impression that the man and Deborah knew each other, but another witness thought they did not. Deborah left with the unidentified individual shortly afterwards when her shift ended. The 19-year-old Deborah Wilhite never returned to her family's residence and has not been heard from again. Wilhite's vehicle is described as a green, 2-door, hardtop, 1966 Ford Galaxy with a license plate number 26E2953. The vehicle identification number 6W66X173520. Vehicle has never been recovered. Wilhite occasionally left Evansville area for several days at a time prior to her disappearance. She was not immediately reported as a missing person as a result. At the time, it was believed that 19-year-old Wilhite may have traveled to California after her disappearance. Only 2 cattle truck drivers are known to have been in the area on the night Deborah disappeared. When interviewed, one of them told police he hadn't given a ride to any hitchhikers as this was against his company's policy. The other truck driver moved away after Deborah went missing and investigators were unable to locate him for questioning. Deborah's husband, Jeffrey Wilhite, had called her at the Windmill on the night she disappeared, and she agreed to pick him up at the bar in Evansville after her shift. When she didn't show up, he called his mother-in-law, who was watching their children, to say he wouldn't be there to pick them up that night. 2 days later, Jeffrey contacted the police in Princeton, Indiana, where he and his wife lived, to say she'd stolen his car. There was speculation that Deborah was killed by a gunshot wound to the head shortly after she departed from the restaurant. Rumors surfaced that her alleged murderer drove her car into a stripper pit outside of Eberfield, Indiana. It was abandoned there with Deborah Wilhite's body in the truck. The stripper pit was nicknamed the Duck Pond and was filled with water in 1974. It was drained sometimes afterwards, but nothing could be found. Wayne Gully and his former wife, Ella Mae Dix, were charged with the 1974 murder of Sherry Lynn Lee Gibson in 2002. Dix reportedly confessed to her role in the homicide, which occurred near Evansville. There are several similarities between Deborah and Gibson's cases. Both women were around the same age and disappeared within months of one another. Billy matches description of the unidentified man who departed with Will Height from the Windmill restaurant. Neither he nor Dix has been charged in connection with Deborah Wilhite's disappearance. The husband and father is deceased, and one of Deborah Wilhite's daughters is deceased. The daughter that's still alive still hopes for resolution in her mother's case. The 19-year-old Deborah Wilhite's disappearance remains unsolved. MJA started working on this case in November 2003, becoming our 56th case. If you have any info concerning this case, please call the Indiana State Police District 35 at 812-867-2079.
Case 3. Welcome to Indianapolis, Indiana. On March 5, 1992, 28-year-old Mark Edward Tomic, a white male, went missing from Indianapolis, Indiana. Mr. Tomic was last seen by his brother, Stephen. This was around 6:15 to 6:30 a.m. on March 5, 1992, at their home that they shared in Indianapolis. Tomic left to go to his job as an organic chemist at Eli Lilly Company. When his work called saying that he failed to arrive, Stephen reported his brother missing around 8 p.m. that evening. When authorities arrived at the Lilly facility, Mr. Tomic's 1990 BMW white two-door coupe was parking in the garage and its doors were locked. His brother noted that the car was not parked in its usual location where the chemist liked to park his car. Mr. Tomic was known to be punctual with a fine work record. The 28-year-old Tomic's brother said that Mark had no professional or personal problems that he was aware of that might have caused Mark to disappear. The only thing out of the ordinary that occurred before Mark's disappearance was a large withdrawal of $7,000 that Mark had made from his savings account in early February. Mr. Tomic is a graduate from Center Grove High School and received his bachelor's degree from Indiana University. If you have any info concerning this case, please call the Indianapolis Metro Police Department at 317-327-6917.
Case 4. Welcome to Bloomington, Indiana. On March 10, 1977, 22-year-old
You're breaking up.
You can hear me?
Yeah, you was breaking up. Now I can hear you. Go ahead and start it over.
Start over?
Yeah, on that, on this case 4.
Case 4. Welcome to Bloomington, Indiana. On March 10th, 1977, 22-year-old Margaret Ann Hayes, a white female, went missing from Bloomington, Indiana. Hayes was last seen on March 10th, 1977 at around 11 p.m. when she left to go buy cigarettes. The 22-year-old Hayes lived in a rooming house at 730 Atwater Street and walked 4 blocks to the former Caveat Emptor, is that right?
Yes.
At 110 South Indiana Avenue. Hayes left with only her last semester student identification card for Indiana University, her contact lenses, and enough money to buy a pack of cigarettes. The 22-year-old Hayes left all her clothes, her luggage, toilet articles, checkbooks, $13 in cash, and her glasses. The cashier remembers Margaret Hayes being in the store that night and that she was alone. 22-year-old Margaret Hayes was never seen again. Margaret Hayes had come to Bloomington about 4 years earlier to attend Indiana University. The 22-year-old Hayes had decided to take a semester off to decide whether to finish her degree or to turn to another course to study. At the time of her disappearance, Hayes was working 3 days a week as a housekeeper to help pay expenses. Margaret Hayes last saw her family in January 1977 during a visit home and spoke to them on the phone in February 1977. MJA started working on this case on June 4th, 2001, becoming our 9th case. If you have any info concerning this case, please call the Bloomington Police Department at 812-349-3319.
Let's take a pause for the cause, and we'll be back in a moment to profile 4 more missing person cases from the state of Indiana. Be back in a moment. Welcome back to our MJ podcast, this series, Deep into the Woods, Episode 15, Part 5, 8 Indiana Missing Person Cases. Case 5. Welcome to Oakland City, Indiana. On November 21st, 1995, 32-year-old Patrick E. King, a white male, went missing from Oakland City, Indiana. Mr. King was last seen at 3:30 p.m. on November 21st, 1995, when he left his place of work at the Jasper Furniture Factory. The 32-year-old King missed a scheduled date with his girlfriend Tuesday night and didn't call in sick to work on Wednesday. King's vehicle, a 1991 Ford Ranger, was found the next day on a dirt road north of Oakland City near Pawtucket River, an area known as Snaky Point. Authorities and family members searched the area where the truck was found, but no trace of the 32-year-old King. Human blood, hair, and fingerprints were found in and on the vehicle, according to the Indiana State Police Detective W.W. George. A witness reported that he saw King speaking with 2 men in a gray or silver car that Tuesday evening. The witness stated that King told him he needed to go somewhere and left with the 2 individuals and was not seen again. 8 days later, 2 men fired shots from a gray and black Oldsmobile into King's then girlfriend's car and smashed one of her headlights. Another story was that an individual told a witness that he killed the 32-year-old King and buried him beneath his garage floor because King had taken some of his guns. Searches and investigations on these leads have not led to any arrest. The Patrick E. King case remains unsolved. If you have any info concerning this case, please call the Indiana State Police at 1-800-852-3970.
Case 6. Welcome to Indianapolis, Indiana. On May 29, 1983, 24-year-old Kimberly Marie Blackburn, a white female, went missing from Indianapolis, Indiana. Blackburn was last seen in Indianapolis, Indiana on May 29, 1983. Something's going on here. Are you there?
Yeah, I'm here.
The 24-year-old Blackburn left her parents' home and never returned. On July 17, 1983, Blackburn called a friend from a truck stop in Arkansas and said she was returning to Indiana. It's unclear whether she ever arrived there. She has never been heard from again. Kimberly Blackburn's life prior to her disappearance was very troubled. The 24-year-old Blackburn had been arrested for drug and alcohol-related offenses as well as theft, disorderly conduct, trespassing, and prostitution. Blackburn's last arrest was for prostitution on April 4, 1983. The 24-year-old Blackburn liked to frequent truck stops and would use CB radios to contact drivers. Blackburn handed out business cards, giving her occupation as public relations. Blackburn had left her home before for extended time periods, but she'd never been gone for this long. She told her mother, "If you don't hear from me before or on Daddy's birthday, something's wrong." On Blackburn's father's birthday, on October 23, 1983, all of Blackburn's 5 siblings called him, but she did not. After Kimberly Blackburn's disappearance, there were rumors that she had died of cancer in a Wisconsin hospital. The stories could not be confirmed, and the 24-year-old Blackburn had showed no indications of having cancer prior to her disappearance. Blackburn's parents have died in the years since her disappearance, but her siblings are still alive and hope for answers in their sister's case. If you have any info concerning this case, please call Indiana Metro Police Department at 317-327-6160.
Case 7. Welcome to Gary, Indiana. On May 21, 1999, 48-year-old John Lynn Taylor, a black male, went missing from Gary, Indiana. John Taylor was last seen walking in the vicinity of the 3900 block of Adams Street in Gary, Indiana on May 21, 1999. The 48-year-old Taylor walked a regular route between Glen Park and Dory Miller housing projects where his girlfriend lived at the time of his disappearance. Taylor enjoyed the walk and would refuse any rides offered to him. On the day of his disappearance, Taylor went to his girlfriend's residence and got into an argument with someone there. The 48-year-old Taylor said he was going out for a walk to get some fresh air. Taylor never returned to the home from his walk and has never been heard from again. During one of his walks in 1998, Taylor was shot from behind and was left for dead. The 48-year-old Taylor underwent surgery for his wound and developed medical problems afterwards. The shooter was never identified. Authorities suspect foul play was involved in Taylor's disappearance, but it's unclear whether it is related to the previous shooting. The Taylor case remains unsolved. If you have any info concerning this case, please call the Gary Police Department at 219-881-1209.
Case 8. Welcome to Richmond, Indiana. On July 22, 2001, 28-year-old Marilyn Renee Nicole McCown, a black female, went missing from Richmond, Indiana. McCown was last seen at the Richmond Coin Laundry in the vicinity of the 1100th block of Southeast Street in Richmond, Indiana on July 22, 2001. 28-year-old McCown stopped by her mother's house and said some Hispanic men at the laundromat had been harassing her. McCown went back to the laundromat to get her belongings and never returned. The 28-year-old McCown has never been heard from again. Surveillance footage showed McCown loading clothes into her 1990 GMC Jimmy 4x4 and leaving the laundromat, and she did not appear to be under duress. McCown disappeared weeks before her wedding, leaving behind an 8-year-old daughter from a previous relationship. Her fiancé, Robert Bobby Webster, was questioned in her case. Days after McCown's disappearance, Webster canceled the wedding and demanded a full refund from the reception hall. Webster also tried to return his wedding band for cash, but the jeweler refused. Because McCown had purchased it and her name was on the receipt. Webster said he needed extra money to help look for McCown. Police have found no evidence against him, and he did take a polygraph test. The car she was driving when she disappeared was registered in Webster's name. On the day of her disappearance, McCown tried to contact her sister several times. Her sister says McCown was seeing another man, Tommy L. Swint, that Webster didn't know about. Her sister warned McCown of the relationship. Swint was sworn in as a police officer in Trotwood, Ohio in 2007. But he resigned from the department less than 2 months later. When the department found out he was a suspect in McCown's disappearance, a fact he hadn't disclosed to them. They told him he had to resign or be terminated. Swint had worked as a corrections officer at a state prison, the Montgomery Education and Pre-Release Center from 1994 until 2007. McCown also worked at the prison as an accounting clerk from 1994 until her disappearance. This is how they had met. Swint was considered a suspect in her case since shortly after McCown vanished. On November 3rd, 2001, McCown's vehicle was located at a large apartment complex in Dayton, Ohio. The door lock was knocked in, the ignition switch had been tampered with, and the battery and stereo were missing. McCown's laundry was folded in the back seat. There was no sign of her at the scene and no fingerprints or other clues. McCown's ex-boyfriend lived at the apartment complex, and McCown had lived with him there in 1997. He passed the polygraph test and had an alibi and was eliminated as a suspect in her case. 28-year-old McCown had made a phone call to Dayton the day she went missing. McCown spoke to a coworker who lived about a mile from the apartment complex. February 2010, Swint was indicted for the murder of the death of Tina Marie Ivory, a prostitute from Dayton, Ohio. Ivory had been beaten and strangled to death in 1991. Authorities planned to question him about other homicides as well. The same day Swint was indicted, and as police approached his home to arrest him, Swint committed suicide. He was living in a small town in Alabama at the time of his death. Swint remains a suspect in McCown's case. Authorities believe McCown drove to Dayton after leaving the laundromat and something happened to her there. The McCown case remains unsolved and foul play is suspected. If you have any info concerning this case, please call Richmond Police Department at 765-983-7247.
Okay, Olivia, is there anything you would like to add to any of these cases?
Yeah, two of them stick out. The Meredith case. Why did that wife wait so long to report him missing? That's kind of sketchy, don't you think?
Yeah, and when the first inquiry happened, you would think police would have opened up the file, but they wait. Like I said, it was 28 years later.
Yeah, why did they wait so long?
Well,
was it a case where somebody knew the police, somebody in the police department?
Well, like I said, that we don't know, or like I said, somebody got their wires crossed, or with him having 4 past ex-wives and that many children, the police might have thought, well, this is usual for him. You know, it's just, one of those things. I mean, that happens on...
They maybe thought that he had just, moved on to another person. Having 4 wives,
Yeah, sometimes that's the way it is. And then, like I said, there's several cases like that they're not reported missing for years later because of different circumstances. And
yeah, that's true.
Yeah, and
that's true.
Yeah, and like I said, that's a lot of things that has to be corrected when it comes to missing persons. I know the laws has been changed and all that, but when a person first makes an inquiry to the police, their things should be taken more seriously, or if they don't fill out a missing persons report, at least put it on paper that somebody inquired about his presence.
Right. Right. You can't just let things go. What is it, 48 hours you have, right?
Well, that's the way it used to be. Now it's whenever you think it's whenever you think that something's happened. Yeah.
Well, that's like in the case with that girl, Gabby. If her mom would have reported it earlier, maybe they would have been able to find her. No, she was already dead, right? That wouldn't have helped.
Well, when everything happened, and she had contacted her parents, she was still alive. And yes, where the parents made a mistake is when he came back with the van without her. That's when I would have had the police on his ass. Yeah, they should have done something, before he had the chance to kill himself. Yeah.
Yeah. And the second case, I think it was one of the cases I read. The female, they said she died from cancer in Wisconsin.
Yeah.
Was she ever found, or is she just missing?
She's missing, and there's no records of her being in a hospital in Wisconsin. And then, from all indications from witnesses, she never talked about having cancer. She didn't look like she was sick or anything like that. So that was probably just,
Right.
you know how rumors get started about a missing person. So,
Right. So she's more than likely deceased. She
yeah, at
didn't
this
get in touch with
point,
her father.
yeah, at
I
this
think she
point,
knew because she had said to her mom, if you don't hear from me, at Daddy's birthday, then something happened or something like that. I think she knew somebody was after her.
yeah, yeah,
Some people live these lives, these reckless lives, and take chances, and bad things happen.
yeah,
But you can't question what's going through someone's mind because you don't know what they're going through in life.
yeah,
Except when you have billions of dollars and you go in a submarine looking for the Titanic. That I just can't understand. But that's just me.
yeah.
you know.
Okay.
Okay.
I want to thank Olivia for being on the show tonight. I want to give a special thanks to our viewers and listeners for tuning in, for y'all have been so kind. I have a quote for you all. As long as you know your heart and intentions are pure, don't explain yourself to anyone. This comes from Positive Minds. Always remember, folks, that if you ever get bored with nothing to do, well, take a walk deep into the woods. You might be surprised at what you might find. That's the end of our MJ podcast, this series, Deep into the Woods. This has been episode 15, part 5, 8 Indiana missing person cases. We say to all of you, good night from Morrisonville, New York, located in the Adirondack Mountains.
All my friends are heathen, take it slow. Wait for them to ask you who you know. Please don't make any sudden moves. You don't know the half of the abuse. Welcome to the rooms of people who have rules for people that they love one day, docked away. Just because you check the guns at the door doesn't mean our brains will change from hand to grenade. You'll never know a psychopath sitting next to you. You'll never know a murderer sitting next to you. You'll think how we get here sitting next to you. But after all I've said, please don't forget. All my friends are heathen, take it slow. Wait for them to ask you who you know. Please don't make any sudden moves. You don't know the half of the abuse. We don't deal that size very well. They say newcomers have a sense now. You've dressed